Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Top 5 Things Fits Should Know About series. I'm Priya Patel, past chair of the FAAAAI Fit Committee. In this session of our series, we will cover the top 5 things Fits should know about wellness. Our guest presenter is Dr. Theresa Bingemann. Dr. Bingemann attended Rutgers University and earned her medical degree at the University of Medicine and Dentistry of New Jersey Medical School, Rutgers Medical School. She then completed a combined internal medicine pediatrics residency at Mount Sinai Hospital. Subsequently, she completed her allergy immunology fellowship at the Mayo Clinic. Dr. Bingemann is board certified in internal medicine, pediatrics, and allergy immunology. She is an associate professor of pediatrics and medicine at the University of Rochester, where she is a program director for the Allergy and Immunology Fellowship. Welcome, Dr. Bingemann, and thank you for leading this session. I will turn it over to you to get us started on your top 5 items.
Thank you so much for having me here today and letting me talk about this topic. It's one that's near and dear to my heart. So before I got into my 5, I just wanted to make a few comments about wellness in general. And so when I think about wellness or well-being, I think about multiple domains. And when we hear about this the most in the medical setting, we really focus on work, but there's so many domains beyond that. And so I want us to frame this conversation in thinking about all of those domains. So there are spiritual domains, there are emotional domains, there are intellectual domains, physical, social, environmental, and financial domains. And it's important that we focus on all of these to be well overall. And at different times in our lives, one of these may be more important to us than others. But often, if one of these areas is really off kilter, it ends up impacting everything else. So, now to the top 5 things to know about wellness. I think the first thing we need to talk about is to know your values. And so, what does that mean? That means know what's important to you and think about what you want from your life at home and at work. And if you think about work, what most people really want is to have a sense of meaning and purpose, of feeling like what they're doing matters. They often want have a sense of calling that this is important. I'm contributing to the greater good. Ideally, to have a job that is crafted to their own needs. And so in our world, like being able to create your schedule or figuring out the flow of your workday, most people want some flexibility. And I can say for me, that's really important. I want to be able to get to my kids' activities. I'm happy to work, say, an alternate schedule or do something extra if I can get to the things that are important to me. Other people want things like fair compensation. I think all of us really want fair compensation. And people want to feel like they can be their authentic selves. So when we think about this, it's important for you to say to yourself, what's most important to me? What's most important to me along all of those domains that we talked about? And especially as fits, when you're going forward and going to be looking for your first job, you need to think about, does this practice, does this institution, does it align with my values? Is it going to allow me to do the things that are most important to me in the future? So that was number 1, to know your values. The second thing I wanted to mention about wellness, if you really want to maintain well-being, you need to assess your mindset. And what do I mean about that? If you think about the skills it takes and the pressures you're under to get into medical school, it tends to drive a culture of perfectionism. And in medicine, we want to do the right things for our patients. We're often told the things that we can improve on. And so it really lends to this culture of always being perfect, which of course is impossible. And I sometimes think those same skills that we're chosen for that get us to medicine are the same things that can be our undoing. So we work hard all the time. We may forego self-care, and we keep seeking to improve and do more things. But eventually we need a break and we need to rest. And I think for a long time in medicine, the thought was everything is about work. And now we're starting to see the shift towards work-life integration. And some of that is letting go of our perfectionism, but also letting go of faulty mindsets. So the idea that if we make a mistake, that we're doomed, that we're not good enough. There's also imposter syndrome, and that whole thing about catastrophizing. And when something happens, this is the worst, it's never going to get better. We also talk about a negativity bias. So those of us that have had a black cloud, and sometimes a pessimistic explanatory style. So the idea that it's always going to be the worst. And these are really mindsets, they're maladaptive, and they can also contribute to imposter syndrome. And so I encourage you to mind your mindset and to try to optimize your mindset. And the way you can do that is first recognize what you're doing and then challenge it. So, for example, if you're walking down the hall and you see a colleague and they seem to be snarling and they don't say anything to you, it may cross your mind to say, oh, did I do something? Are they upset with me? But there are many other reasons beyond you that they may be upset in that moment. They may not have even seen you. But when your mind starts going in that path of saying, I must have done something wrong, they must be upset with me, I would ask you to challenge yourself and say, okay, what other reasons could there be that this person has that expression on their face? And does this absolutely refer to me? So I think it's important that we always mind our mindsets. Another thing that I think is important, so number 3, is to attend to your finances. So get them in order. We know that they're going to college and med school is expensive, and more people have a lot of debt going into training. And it's really important to think about what you can do to put yourself in the best place moving forward. And this really relates to all those different domains that I was telling you about earlier. In my years of practice, I've watched many people feel like they have to stay in jobs that they don't like because, they have a lot of debt and need the money. And maybe if they made some different choices earlier, they wouldn't feel as stuck. So I'll give you a few pointers that I learned through the years. So one thing is to always spend less than you earn. And one quick, easy way to save money is by preparing your own food. And I can tell you, when I was a resident, my husband and I used to cook on the days we weren't working. He was a resident too. And we would pack up all of our meals to bring to work so we didn't have to buy food because it was cheaper and healthier if we brought our own food. Another thing that I did during residency, and if you haven't done it as a fit, you might want to think about doing it, is to get disability insurance. Because you want to have your own occupation disability insurance, it's important that you get your own policy and you get the things that you need in it specified clearly. The reason this is good to do when you're younger is because they're going to do a medical exam and they're going to look at your medical history. And you're going to get better rates when you're younger and healthier, but also you're less likely to have exclusions. Another thing I would say along the financial wellness piece is consider your priorities when you buy a house. I remember my program director saying to me when I was looking to buy a house, you're going to grow into whatever your income is. And so think about what's most important to you and don't become house poor. And I remember taking that to heart. So my husband and I had a discussion and said, okay, what do we want to be able to do? What's important to us? How can we finance that and still be able to go on vacations and contribute to our children's college funds and stuff like that? So, in essence, we ended up buying a house that cost a quarter of what they wanted to give us a loan for. Now, granted, they do want to often give you much more in loans than anyone should probably take. But think about what's most important to you. If your house is most important to you, fine, spend more on your house. But if you want to have the flexibility to perhaps say work part-time, and that was something else that I wanted to do. And so my husband and I started full-time, but what we did was we planned on my part-time salary just in case. So that way we didn't have to worry if anything changed. The other thing I would say is if you haven't done it yet, to start saving for retirement. I remember we met with financial planners when we were residents, and so we both opened Roth IRAs then. And then every year we contributed the most we could to our retirement accounts. And I remember being told by one financial planner saying, if you're having a hard time contributing, next year when you get a raise, contribute the difference and you won't notice the difference. And so I think that's important because it will give you flexibility for the rest of your life if you can get your finances in order. So I believe I'm on number 4. And so for number 4 is plan what's most important to you. And with that, take all of your vacation and time off and truly take time off. So there was a recent study looking at physicians, and they asked how many of them took all their vacation. And when they took their vacation, how much work did you do in the EMR? And not surprisingly, the people that took all their vacation and had the least time in the EMR when they were off had the best well-being of the other physicians. And those that worked on vacation and took the least amount of time off had the highest degree of burnout. So make sure you not only take your vacation, but you also are really off when you're on vacation. But then we can't be on vacation all the time. So while you are working, as you will be the majority of the time, make sure you plan what's most important to you when you're off. So oftentimes our work will expand into the time we can give it. And if we don't plan what's important to us, other things can fill that space. And so I always try to prioritize time with friends, time with my family. I make sure I get to exercise each day. I'm very protective of my sleep. And I recommend that you think about what's most important to you so you can prioritize that. And that way you can get it done. Because I always think about no one else is going to protect our time like we can ourselves. So make sure you plan what's most important to you. And then number 5. Number 5 is be the person you want to work with. And I bring this up because community is really important. And one of the challenges in medicine these days is as we all go to various satellite clinics, we often end up working alone. And then people don't realize that other people may be having challenges just like they are. And by getting together and communicating and have good relationships with your colleagues, you understand that we all have similar experiences. The other part of this, when I say be the coworker you would want to work with, is I think of the group that I worked with in the past, and whenever any of us had something going on, everyone was very willing to step in and help. And I would always work an extra day if it meant someone could take the vacation that they wanted. And so I always think about, even when sometimes things are inconvenient, would I want someone to do this for me if the roles were reversed? And while we can't control a lot of things in medicine, we can control the way we treat each other. We can control the way we talk to each other. We can control the way we react. We can control how much we help. And in this vast medical morass, there are the things that we can do to make things better for each other. And I think that whenever you can do that, you should. And on top of all that, aside from it, I think being the right thing to do, we know that when we do good things for others, we feel better ourselves. And so, on that note, I also recommend that you acknowledge the good that other people do. You know, we often hear more critical things than positive things. So, if you can share positive things with others, that's wonderful. And there is this book that looked at leadership a few years ago by two business professors. And what they found was that leaders were thought to be about 32% more confident if they had a sense of humor. And I bring that up because having a sense of humor at work is not poking fun at other people, not being mean-spirited, but looking for the joy and looking for ways to laugh. But also in this book, they talked about finding ways to brighten other people's day, whether that is leaving a little note or saying thank you or acknowledging something they did. I think all of these things are inherent to number 5, which is, again, be the coworker you want to work with. So those were my top 5 things to know about wellness, and I certainly hope they resonate with you and are helpful. Thanks again for having me.
Before signing off, I would like to thank Dr. Bingemann for volunteering her time. We appreciate the information and guidance you shared for the FITs. If you have any follow-up questions after viewing this session, please reach out to our FIT staff liaison, Mari at mduran@quadai.org. See you soon.